Finally. Okay, so
You got
all
there.
right. Yeah, I've just got to turn off the mute now. This is echoing. I think that's just the last thing to do. Alien spaceship mute. Okay.
Finally. Okay, so you got
All
there.
right. Right, okay, so are we recording? Uh Record, record this computer. What is that one then? Okay. Yeah, shall we make a start then, bro?
Yep.
Ah, okay. So do you want to do the opening remarks for us, please?
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome along to our regular listeners and viewers. We are the Alien Spaceship podcast. I am Trevor Gear and he calls me Bruv.
And I'm Emmy Hickins, and he calls me Cuz. Welcome to the Alien Spaceship. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, still echoing. Strange. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so what are we talking about today, bruv?
Well, I'd almost forgotten actually, because you've been keeping me waiting so long. But no, we're talking about one or two different things, and
Yeah.
we'll start off. It's sort of the word friends come into this. I think I said on the WhatsApp that it's who goes there, friend or foe. So it's kind of related to that. And first of all, I'd like to ask you how many different species on our planet do you think there are in terms of having been identified rather than just hazarded a guess? How many different species?
How many different species of what? Of humans or
Of life. It's not just human life, but of, I mean, the planet teems with life, doesn't it? It literally teems with life. Many, probably more undiscovered species and species that have come and gone without being discovered than there are that we know about. But yeah, just to hazard a guess, how many do you think they have been identified as species on this planet?
I think it'd been the tens of thousands.
Yeah, it certainly would be tens of thousands, and the actual answer to that is there are 2.1. I mean, there could be estimates up to a trillion different species, but 2.1 million have actually been
Wow.
officially identified. So that's quite a lot.
Wow.
Now, for this purpose of what we're doing here or saying here, we're going to
Yeah.
ignore the majority of those, which are in the form of plants and fungi and bacteria, stuff like that. I mean, there's could be up to billions of those, but that's obviously the majority of the 2.1 million. Now, if we look at insects, there's 1 million approximately formally identified species of insect, which is a hell of a lot of insects when you think about it. And the other
Yep.
main issue, the main genre here is the animals. Now that includes vertebrates and mammals. Obviously, we're vertebrates as well. And of those, the animals, there are 65,000 known species, but of those, 6,000 are mammals, which is us, of course, and 10,000 are birds. So 6,000 mammals, of which we are one of those, have been formally identified. So of all the millions, likely millions of species, there are 6,000 of us, and then birds about 10,000. Now, we share the planet, don't we? As we said before, or just now, it teems and
Yeah.
teems with different life forms, and we share we share our lives on this great ride on this amazing planet. And this is where we come to the thing about friends and our place in that as humans. Let me
Yeah.
just throw in a quick quote, something you may have heard before, sort of a saying, just because it relates to the word friends. And it's this: champagne for my real friends, real pain for my sham friends, which is quite a clever little quotation, actually, from the 19th century, I believe. Champagne for my real friends, real pain for my sham friends, which touches on friends. Who are our friends in species that run alongside us? Now, the next question to you is this: what do you
Yeah.
think the most dangerous animal on this planet is? Animals
The
to
most
include mammals, vertebrates, everything. What do you think the most dangerous of the species is in the animal kingdom, the mammal kingdom?
Well, I think the most dangerous will be humans.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I thought you would say that, and I think probably most people would say that. I would have said that till I looked this up. Now, humans, yeah, we are very high up on the list, but in fact, the
right.
most dangerous animal in the world is the mosquito. Now, it's dangerous, and
Oh,
obviously, we talk about danger in terms of dangerous to humans. Now, the mosquito
wow.
kills approximately between 750,000 and 1 million humans every year around the world. And that's really just
Wow.
a rough estimate. It's probably more. Basically, they don't attack humans, but they pass on illnesses like malaria, dengue fever, and other very dangerous things. Okay, so the mosquito is the most dangerous animal. What about number two? Who do you think is second?
Humans.
Yeah, go for it again. Yeah. Yeah, humans are the second most dangerous animal, and we are
Ah,
responsible, apparently, for up to 475,000 homicides or murders every year. Now, that, of course, is just humans against humans, but that doesn't count perhaps our inhumanity to the animals. We obviously kill a lot of animals, insects, and other things, so we'll perhaps come to that in a minute. Okay, number three then. What do you think the third most dangerous animal is?
the third most dangerous animal will probably be snakes. I
Very
hate
good,
them.
yeah. You've been
Oh, is
looking at
it?
my notes, haven't you? That's good. Yeah, snakes are responsible for roughly 100,000 to 150,000 deaths every year due to venomous bites. I mean, that's quite a
Wow.
staggering number that many people lose their lives having been bitten by a snake. That's pretty awful. Okay, next one. Number four, but this is probably the third if we're looking at most deadliest to humans, which we are. So
Right.
in the third one after the mosquito, snakes. What's the third one that kills most humans?
The third one, the third one would be um scorpions.
No, good guess. It's actually dogs. Dogs.
Oh,
The third deadliest animal to humans, if excluding our own species, as I've said, and it accounts for up to 60,000 deaths annually, primarily through the dreadful illness rabies. If you get bitten.
oh,
In fact, I read a story a few months ago of a British lady who was on holiday somewhere. It may have been Morocco, and a little dog, simply innocently, if you like, came up and licked her on her arm. She thought
hmm.
nothing of it at all. It wasn't a bite, it was a lick. She was over there with her family, her children, and everything. 3 or 4 months later, and I gather rabies can incubate for 3 or 4 months, even longer.
Oh, wow.
She suddenly started developing symptoms of rabies, and of course, if you don't get immediately vaccinated after you've been bitten
Hmm.
or licked in this case, then there's no cure, and she died a very unpleasant death, according to her family.
Oh,
So
wow.
rabies is a very disastrous illness. thankfully, it's not been in this country for many years, so
Mm.
that's good. And then the last one in terms of danger is freshwater snails. I'm not sure I really know what they are, but apparently they
All right.
cause between 20,000 and 200,000 deaths each year by spreading the parasitic disease schistosomiasis. Got to be careful how you say that one. Schistosomiasis, so whatever that is. So
Oh, wow.
so that they're the most dangerous animals. Now, if we move on from there, as I say, we share our lives on this planet with these people, and
Yeah.
I'd like us to look at a saying that it's a well-known phrase. I think it's from the Bible. We're not doing religion, but I'm
No.
paraphrasing this to this: greater love has no one than this, that someone lays down their life for a friend or for another. Right now, before we get on to that, because we need to think what are friends and so on, I'm going to ask you a
Yeah.
question. Around your home, do you kill
Yeah.
flies and moths and any other bugs that fly around?
Well, I didn't where I used to live on my own. I didn't have that problem. Uh, I don't know why. I didn't have that problem. Occasionally, you'd have a bit of one of them tiny annoying flies, but that's very, very rare, and this only happens in the summer. However, where I've moved in to now with my wife, Janet, um, she has a zapper that she uses to zap them. That was the first time I've seen
Really?
anything like that. I mean, I know the zapper, they have takeaways. It's like a light bulb, but usually up there innocently, and then the flies, they're attracted to the light, or the moths, they're attracted to the light, and
Yeah.
then once they go there, it just zaps them and kills them. I know I've heard of that one, but I've never seen a. This one actually looks like one of the bats that they use at
Tennis racket,
Wimbledon.
that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a tennis racket. Yeah,
Yeah.
looks like a
Yeah.
tennis racket. It just goes zoop, and it just goes zoop. I like the noise it makes. Well, poor animals or poor
Yeah.
insects. Yeah. So I don't personally. I even let spiders walk around. I just sometimes I'll pick them up and delicately and chuck them out. But they make their way back in. I don't know how,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Spiders are often an exception, aren't they? Because we're always told it's a phrase, isn't there? If you wish to live and thrive, let a spider run alive. A lot of people, I think myself included, don't like to kill a spider. If you see one, you try and
all right.
put it outside. I agree with
Yeah.
you on that. But otherwise, you don't have any problem. And I'm not saying you're right or wrong. We're probably the
Yeah.
vast majority of people do try and get rid of bugs around their home because
Yeah.
flies and things can pass on bugs to humans. Moths, the little moths, they can eat the clothes. But I had a customer when I used to work for a living a few years ago, and I was having lunch with her one day, and we were talking about this for some reason in general. And she said that she never, ever would kill anything, any live thing in her home. And I sort of asked
Yeah.
her about it. I said, well, what about a wasp? What about stuff that could sting you and so on? And she said, nope, no, I believe that the planet has loads of life, teems with life, and I've got no more right to kill those little creatures than killing anything else. So I thought that was quite an interesting stance, and probably well, a very ethically strong stance, isn't it? Not to kill another creature. I think the
Mm.
received wisdom on these things is, I mean, unless you are a very hard ethical stance sort of person, most people
Yeah.
would say, well, yeah, if they can cause damage to humans or to human activities within the home, they could be dangerous, then killing them is okay, provided you do it as quickly and as mercifully as you can. Namely, the zapper that you've already talked about. So I imagine when you hit one with those, it would just zap it instantly to death. I mean, interestingly, I was looking at this, and whereas a little moth, and they can do a lot of damage to clothes and bedding and so on, they're not sentient beings. They are reactive. I don't know whether they feel fear. I don't think so. If they're not complex like a human. Whereas the little flies, those tiny little black flies, they've been researched, and it does show that they make some sort of decisions as to where they're going to go, what they're not going to do, and that they experience fear, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Because whenever you try and zap or swat something in your home, they very cleverly seem to avoid it, don't they? And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, they
not
do.
nice to think maybe they're scared stiff of losing their existence. I don't know, but again, it's all to do with the same subject about are all the creatures on the earth our friends? We are okay.
Mm.
We're the second most dominant creature, but obviously humans have the upper hand on most things. And we could look at all sorts of the way animals are treated. We must be responsible for the deaths every year of millions of animals, but then
Mm.
most of that, I guess, is because we eat them. Most people, not everybody, but most people eat the animals. So again, we would have to say to ourselves, is that a reasonable thing to do for fellow life forms on our planet? So I guess we all grapple with these things from time to time. But the question in all of that is, do we think of these other little creatures and larger creatures, larger animals, do we see them as our friends, which I guess overall we should do? Now, coming back
Mm.
to that phrase, that expression, greater love has no one than this, than someone lays down their life for another or for a friend, as the original one says. Fortunately, our friendships with people don't normally entail us risking our lives to help them. But looking a
Mm.
little bit more deeply into this, I looked at people who could claim to have had that greater love. I'll just find my, yeah, now we'll start with people who've done amazingly self sacrificing things just
Mm.
because it's a testimony to them, really. First example, a man called Joseph Blankson in 2018 in a place in actually in Nigeria called Rivers State. Joseph Blankson.
Wow.
And in Nigeria in 2018, 36-year-old Joseph Blankson, he died while rescuing 13 passengers from a capsized boat. He saved them one by one, returning into the water each time until he succumbed to fatigue and drowned while attempting to save a 14th person. I mean,
Mm.
what amazing love for a
Wow.
fellow human, humans he didn't know necessarily,
Oh,
that he
yeah.
was prepared to sacrifice his life. And I guess that really is the definition of friendship. The next one is a bloke called Rick Rescorla, and this was the 9/11 attacks in America. And as head of security for Morgan Stanley, which I think is a bank out there, he famously directed thousands of employees to safety during the 9/11 attacks, even going back into the collapsing World Trade Center to ensure others were out, sacrificing his own life in the process. Again, what a thing to do, to keep going back. Most of us want to get away from danger, don't we? Whatever it may be. But to actually keep going back in to save people, quite something. The next one is Jane Harrison. And in 1968, BOAC, which is now British Airways, had an engine fire. And this 22-year-old flight attendant, she stayed at her post to push passengers down escape chutes. She was awarded the George Cross for her sacrifice as her body was found beside an elderly disabled passenger she had stayed
Oh,
behind to help. I mean, that's quite something as well, isn't it? To know you're going
oh,
to die in the flames of an aeroplane,
yeah.
to save
Oh.
somebody who couldn't get themselves out. And then there was Maximilian Kolbe in 1941.
Mm.
He was a Polish priest in Auschwitz, and he volunteered to die by starvation in place of a stranger, a fellow prisoner who had a family waiting for him, choosing to give his life to save another. And I mean, that is, again, mind blowing, isn't it, to take the place of
Yeah.
somebody in those awful circumstances. And then another another lady, Edith Cavell, a British nurse working in occupied Belgium during World War One. She
Mm.
treated wounded soldiers from both sides. She lost her life by firing squad after running an underground network that helped over 200 soldiers escape to neutral territory. And then the last one on these, because these people are incredible in their bravery, was sadly another aeroplane incident accident in America in 1982 in Washington.
Mm.
There's a film of this on YouTube, and it's an Air Florida Flight 90. Basically, it took off in a snowstorm, and the wings, although they'd been de-iced, the time it took then to take off meant they'd iced up again. Long story
Mm.
short, it couldn't get heights, so it started to go down. It hit a bridge over the Potomac River and went into the water, completely underneath. And there is, not that I'm saying it's good to watch, but it's quite an interesting story to see what happened.
Mm.
Anyway, five or six people surfaced pretty quickly. It was in the winter. I have an idea it was in May, but it was a real snowstorm. Anyway,
Mm.
the river was completely solidly frozen, but they surfaced, although the plane was underneath, and they were there. Boats were trying to get out to them. It was such a difficult thing, and indeed, a couple of men dived into the water to try and help them. And a helicopter came, and this 50-year-old passenger, Arland Williams, repeatedly gave up the rescue helicopter's lifeline to other passengers. He lifted one of them at a time, and he insisted he would be last. And in the end, when the thing came down for him, he was gone. So again, this man sacrificed his life. So, yeah, most friendships don't entail sacrificing your life. But I'd like to
Mm.
carry on here and talk about something we've looked at before, and that's extreme sports. Now, let me ask you a question there, Cuz. Um, and we'll look at some of these extreme sports. Is it right, do you think, even within a free society where you do what you want to do, basically, in terms of what
Yeah.
sports you might do. But is it right to risk your life in a dangerous sport when it might entail sacrificing the life of people sent out to save you? There was actually, before you answer that, there was a case on this at the moment, really, um, in the
Oh
Maldives
yeah.
last week. Five people, five divers, including a very
Mm.
experienced professor, a lady, and her daughter, plus the boat captain and another man, and then another lady as well. They went down 160 feet by an atoll in the Maldives, and they went into a cave system, which sounds to me like a pretty dangerous thing to do, even if it is not necessarily considered extreme. Anyway,
Mm.
sadly, they didn't surface, and then a body was found when divers started to search um, the body on his own. They didn't find. I haven't still haven't found the other four, and they're
Mm.
sending people down to try and find the bodies to bring them back for their loved ones. Um, Sadly, one of the divers in the rescue squad has also died now. And the upshot of this is that a very elite squad of divers in Finland have now gone over there to try and help to get the bodies back. Now, this highlights the problem, doesn't it? When people do things which most of us would say are very dangerous. Um, you're right. If you want to risk your own life for the adrenaline buzz, and fine, but some people have got to clear up the mess or try and rescue you. What's your opinion? Is it right that we should have that freedom of choice to do anything we want to do? And because people will always come and try and save you if it goes wrong.
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, I would say, oh, you gotta send out people to try and find or save a life. right? But now I'm older and I'm wiser. I think if you wander off on your own or whatever, or in a group, and you go rock climbing, for instance, or skydiving or whatever, you wander off hiking or whatever adventure, you know, that you wander off on. Um, I think you're taking a risk. I think you should stay where you are.
Well, yeah,
I've always, I've always been a huge advocate for just stay where you are. Where you going? What are you doing? I know I married an adventurous wife. She wants to do this and that and that. And I said, listen, if you got friends that you can take with you, I don't, I don't particularly feel like I just enjoy the peace of being in a safe place. And on top of it, the factor, if we have to factor in the fact that, or the fact that you're putting other people's life at risk by, actually trying to do what you love.
yeah.
And then people that love you would then risk their lives to go and find you, or even people that don't know you, like the emergency services, for instance. And I think it's a selfish thing to do. For me, this is my opinion. I think it's a really selfish thing to do. For you to put other people's lives in danger. You're not considering other people's lives. You're being inconsiderate and selfish. That's the way that I look at it. Thrill seekers, adrenaline, junkies, they might see it differently, but that's the way that I see it. In my opinion, I think you should, before you do anything like that, just think about other people's lives that you be putting at risk. That's just mine. Yeah, this is my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a reasonable opinion, but I guess we would say that, as I say, it's a free world in that sense. We can do what we want. Um, Most things that we do, probably in life, even everyday life, have a certain element of risk attached to them, don't they? We quite happily get into our car, and when you think about it, we sort of we don't cram ourselves in, but we a car is very much designed in the shape of the human body, so that you can bend, you can sit, your legs go down and body up. In a way, it's like getting into a spaceship, into a capsule, and anyone who's a bit claustrophobic, and if they think of it like that. Because you can't suddenly stand up in your car, you're very confined. And then we propel ourselves along at these inordinate speeds and don't even think about it. We see cars when we're driving on a motorway, and we don't think, well, you sometimes see someone whizzing by, but even at 70, nothing else seems to be too fast. You break down on the side of a motorway and just see how fast 70 miles an hour is. I mean, it's like a bullet going past. And yet we do that most people do that quite happily when they get in their car as a driver or passenger. And we don't really think, well, it's the syndrome, isn't it? It can't happen to me, which probably infects all of us. But we are prepared to take risks on a daily basis, and there's
Yeah.
probably a risk in most things. I mean, statistically, I think it's true to say that being in your home, where there's stairs and a bath and other things, scalding water, electricity, can be more risky in terms of accidents that happen than being anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I think, although I
Yeah.
understand what you said, the fact is we do put ourselves in calculated risk situations. Not many of us would go for these other things. And one case, which again we may have touched on before, of a case of where a couple or a family really put themselves in a situation which endangered the lives of rescuers, was something in 2009, I think it was. And it's called the Nutty Putty incident. Now, the Nutty Putty was a cave system in Utah in America, and it's quite a long story, so I won't go into all of it. But basically,
Yeah.
there's a family of about five children, three boys, two girls, and the boys met up in November 2009. They all went back to the family home in Utah for Thanksgiving, and two of the boys said, "Well, why don't we all go and go down into the cave system, which they'd done as children into this nutty putty thing. And there'd always been a bit of controversy around this system because there had been people who got stuck, thankfully retrieved, and the local authority there at one stage in the early 2000s closed it under a lot of pressure from cavers who said it's basically safe. They opened it again, but they said we're going to charge a license fee, and you need to show some degree of expertise at caving. So anyway, that's how it was. So anyway, these fellows they'd grown up. John Jones, he was about 27, 28, I think. He was a medical student, and he and his younger brother, and I think two or three of the other siblings as well, they all went along to the cave, and down they went. And most of them stayed in, because it's been mapped, and most of them stayed in this beautiful room, as they call it, where there was space and all sorts of incredible things to look at with their lights. I mean, there was no daylight in there. Anyway, John and his brother, I can't remember his name, they went further, and they knew where they were going, or so they thought. But they kind of John got a bit farther ahead, and there became like a fork in the tunnel. And these tunnels, I mean, they were crawling along. They were crawling along in very tight tunnels. Now I've come to that point, and I think we're coming to the end of our time, are we?
Yeah. It's
Are we? That's a shame because I was in the middle of that, but I'll have to continue that next week then.
yeah. Sorry about that.
I thought
I was actually
we started late, and I thought we were carrying on a bit later. Anyway, we'll carry
all
that
right.
on next week.
We can carry on if you want.
Well, let me just finish this story because
Right. Okay.
and then we can take it from there. Anyway, so they went
Yeah.
down, and John got a bit further ahead, and there was a fork in these tunnels. Now, when you see, because one of them they film each other, these people when they go down there, you're having to edge
Yeah.
yourself along, horizontally in these terribly tight tunnels, sometimes going round bends, and you have to breathe in to get your body round these. I mean, how anybody can do those things. I mean, I suppose I would say I have always had a degree of claustrophobia. It doesn't stop me doing things, but the idea of going into a cave tunnel is probably my worst nightmare. Anyway, they thought that John thought he knew where he was, but he took the wrong turn, went down,
Yeah.
and then went down face down, and it stopped a dead end. He called his brother, and he heard him, and he came and he tried to pull him out, but his angle was at about 70 degrees, so his head was way down below his body.
Oh,
Anyway, long story short, his brother had to go back to get rescue. 3 hours later, the professional rescuers came. They sent people down. They tried to rig up a pulley system to pull him out. And poor John, he was getting, of course, when your head's down like that, you start to hallucinate eventually. Upshot was they couldn't get him out, and he died from cardiac arrest after 27 hours. Can you imagine?
oof.
Can you imagine that? And in fact, after that, the authorities sealed up that cave forever. They concreted it over with a testimony to poor John. He had a little
Oh,
child, and his wife was pregnant. So it was an absolute tragedy, the nutty putty incident. And it's worth looking at YouTube just to, I don't know, just pay one's respects to John and his family. But the point is,
yeah.
the rescuers who kept having to go down there, one or two of
Yeah.
them got stuck, but they were unfortunately able to be got out. And although I'm not in any way casting aspersions or blaming John or his family, because people do things, and we all could be in a situation where we need rescuing. The
Yeah.
fact is, the rescuers could have lost their lives as well, as did one
Yeah.
of these divers in the Maldives at the moment. So yeah, that's. But the important message to take from that, I think, is that whatever the situation, humans, the spectrum of humanity, the positive, almost divine, spiritual side of what we are, always wants to help another human, wants to help one another. And that is a great positive. In all the negatives that humans can be, there is a wonderful, beautiful side to humanity that wants to care for itself. And that's perhaps not a bad note to finish this so far.
Wow. Wow. Can you imagine? just being, I'm claustrophobic, so I don't think I'd survive. I don't think I'd survive 5 minutes there. You
No,
know,
I would. I
yeah,
wouldn't.
I'd die of fear. Oh my
Yeah,
days. Oh, yeah. Well, um, there's nothing you can't say when, somebody's done something and obviously they've lost their lives. It's a really sad thing to imagine, so you can only feel for them, can't you? You can't really say, oh, they were
yeah,
stupid or whatever. Well, if he survived, I would have said he was stupid. But well, if
yeah,
he
yeah,
died, you
absolutely.
know.
Yeah,
If he died, he's paid it. Yeah. So this is all we've got time for. You've been watching and listening to the Alien Spaceship with myself, Emmy Hickins. And he calls me Cos.
and me, Trevor Gear, and he calls me bruv.
So it's a goodbye from me. Join us again next
And
week.
goodbye from me too.
Oh, that was just listening to that, it's making me it's it's good.
You want to stay indoors and stay safe all the time. It's
Yeah, this
yeah,
is it. This is it.
yeah.